they now have a level of crime that they have never known in Sweden. They now have a level of sexual assault that they have never known in Sweden. They now have a level of rape that they have never known in Sweden. When I talked about this in a debate in Toronto last year, I was debating Louise Arbour, who was the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights and prosecuted war crimes in Sudan and Bosnia. Actually, back then she was a serious feminist and took rape seriously as a war crime. And I was also up against Simon Sharma, the distinguished BBC television historian. And I made some of these points about the novel kinds of crime that previously ordered, civilized European societies had never had to deal with. Gang rape in public places. And I was appearing with Nigel Farage, the UKIP leader who pulled off Brexit a couple of months later. And we brought up the astonishing vulnerability of German and Scandinavian women in particular, thanks to the admission of these refugees. And what was fascinating to me was that Louise Arbour, who'd previously prosecuted rape as a war crime, played rape for laughs and got big laughs. Look at this.
Let me just address very briefly, and I hope we'll have an opportunity to return to that, to the issues raised by these newborn feminists there. And I see the clock running, so I reserve my right to flesh out these ideas a little more deeply, but I can assure you that for those of us feminists who came, certainly the women of my generation, from a cultural, political environment in this country in which religion dictated most of our rights and privileges, we've managed to start occupying our place in public life, not by pushing and trying to exclude others, and certainly not by espousing as champions people who have that kind of ideology.
Thank you. Okay. I want to hear from the pro team back-to-back. So, Simon, let's have your rebuttal, and then I'll come on to Mark and Nigel.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was just struck by how obsessed with sex these two guys are, really, actually. It's a bit sad, really, actually.
Simon Sharma, a bit sad, really. That's pretty funny, Simon. Simon returned to his point just at the end of his presentation about how these guys aren't rapists, no need to worry about the rape.
And all of those men arriving weren't arriving with the purpose of upping their rape score either.
Simon, we're going to have lots of time in the cross-examination to get into these issues, but I want to come over to the other side, and Mark Steyn, get your quick reaction to what you've heard.
Hey, I made a decision tonight that I wasn't going to do funny stuff. I was going to be deadly serious, and I'm slightly amazed at our colleagues' ability to get big laughs on gang rape. Madame Arbour scoffs at the newfound feminists over here. I'm not much of a feminist, but I draw the line at the 3-year-old getting raped and the 7-year-old getting gang raped in a basement. And when Simon tells us that, oh, funnily enough, we're all obsessed, maybe we don't get enough action in the Toronto singles bars. Madame Arbour, as she said, is a feminist of a certain generation. And those feminists were very clear, as Madame Arbour was very clear in Sudan, that rape is not about sex, whatever Simon may say. Rape is about power, which is what Madame Arbour says. And we're not talking about the kind of sex I want to have. I ain't into 3-year-old girls. But the 14-year-old girl in Sudan, here's a random example from 10 days of German migrant crimes in January. 16-year-old boy raped inside Wolfsburg City Hall. 13-year-old girl sexually assaulted near a railway station in Ellwagen. 3 girls sexually assaulted at a swimming pool in Ansbach. 15-year-old girl raped at a railway station in Wuppertal. Attempted gang rape of a 13-year-old girl in Gelsenkirchen. I can go on and on. These are all rapes, gang rapes in public places, trains, streets, parks, and even City Hall. And I congratulate you on getting big laughs with that, Simon, and you, Louise, because if I'd known that, I'd be doing open night mic on gang rape at a comedy club. It isn't funny. It isn't funny.
I make no claims to be a great debater, but that's the point at which an audience of Toronto liberals realized the truth about what is going on in Europe. And that turned the debate for Nigel Farage and me. That moment. And it's an important moment. And it goes back to what Alison Graves and PolitiFact and the Associated Press are talking about with Donald Trump. And his so-called false statement about Sweden. There's a great story going on in Sweden right now. It's a story about the contradictions of multiculturalism. It's a story about whether feminism can exist when you have mass migration from cultures where women are property. And on the evidence of what's going on in Scandinavia and Germany, and I spent most of last summer there, all of last summer there, spent much of last year there talking to dozens and dozens of Swedish women who have been the victims of sexual assault, who are scared to go out unaccompanied, who are fed up of being told by their police chiefs that you have to wear some stupid bracelet that asks refugees not to rape you, and that the stupid bracelet is going to keep you safe. The stories the American media never tell, because in essence, that is the job they do now. Their principal function in the modern world is to decide what you don't need to know. This is the biggest story of our time. The demographic transformation of some of the oldest societies on earth is the biggest story of our time. And little snippy, dweeby, credential fact checkers from the University of Missouri School of Journalism don't want you to know this. And their job is to decide what it is you don't need to know. And that's why Donald Trump is right to call them the enemy of the people. And that's why Thomas Jefferson was right. This is not the function of a free press in a healthy society. We'll see you next time.